Stock indexes around the world have mostly rallied over the past 24 hours as investors move into riskier assets as they bet on US Federal Reserve interest rate cuts and that a US-China trade agreement could follow. What fundamentals should UAE investors currently be looking out for? Jameel Ahmad is Global Head of Currency Strategy and Market Research at FXTM. He's on the line with us now from Cyprus. Jameel, thanks for being with us. Let me first of all ask you, what are the key, fundamentals of markets that we should be looking out for at the moment globally?
Thank you very much for having me. Now, you correctly pointed out that investors are very closely watching towards speculation over whether the US Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, will cut interest rates. We have this ongoing tug-of-war that's going on with US-led trade tensions between the US and China, US and Mexico, although there was a breakthrough last week, which has raised risk sentiment globally, as you pointed out. Also, we've got the UK Prime Minister, Theresa May, who recently resigned from her position. There's a lot of speculation over who could become the next US Prime Minister. And again, we have key economic data across all corners of the globe, but particularly investors will be watching out for the US inflation figures and the US retail sales. Why this is important for the UAE economy overall is that trade tensions between the two largest economies in the world, United States and China, can impact all of us, whether that's in Cyprus in Europe or the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East. And of course, US economic data can have impacts on the US dollar. Any impact on the US dollar can also have the noticeable impact on pegged currencies, including the likes of the UAE dirham.
Now, Jameel, a lot of talk about the price of oil at the moment. Is it likely that these production cuts are going to continue?
It is definitely likely, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. There's so many speculation over trade tensions and over what impact this is going to have on the global economy. On top of this, we've also got a lot of economic data releases that have come across from all different corners of the globe that have pointed some economic downside risks for the global economy. Now, this presents risk to a lower oil price because oil is a commodity that relies on demand. If economic sentiment globally is not very high, then this risks demand for oil, and that really puts the expectation on OPEC that they will continue supply cuts, they will continue to collaborate in order to achieve a stronger oil price, because the economic concerns that are continuing around the global economy do point towards downside pressures in the commodity markets, and that includes the price of oil.
For UAE investors at the moment, what should they be monitoring at the moment, do you think?
I would certainly be monitoring what investors are monitoring globally, and that's the trade tensions. And this is because it has such a direct impact on riskier assets and emerging market sentiment. Now, the UAE and the GCC Middle East region is still classified as emerging markets. Emerging markets rely on risk appetite and a very confident mood from investors to be purchasing into riskier assets, which includes emerging markets. That includes the Dubai Financial Market, Abu Dhabi General Market, GCC, Middle East indices, along with emerging markets, whether that's in China, Malaysia, all emerging markets come into the same basket, and they all rely on confidence from investors. And the US and Mexico breakthrough at the end of last week, which, as you correctly pointed out, correlated into a rally for global indices, has also had a positive impact on the local markets in the United Arab Emirates and elsewhere in the GCC region.
All right, Jameel, running out of time, but just quickly, what do you think, the fluctuations in the US dollar, what effect will that have on pegged currencies like the UAE dirham?
Well, these fluctuations are being led by concerns that the Federal Reserve will cut US interest rates. What impact this has on the dirham is actually positive. You've got a 1% decline in the dollar index, which means that the UAE dirham will also decline against other currencies. This improves tourism prospects and also the likes of the British pound, UK importers, European importers to be importing goods from the United Arab Emirates.
All right, we'll leave it there. But Jameel Ahmad, thanks very much for joining us today.